When my husband, who rose to power by clinging to my family, suggested taking a concubine, I readily agreed. Amidst his stunned gaze, I turned gracefully. For this concubine is the true saintly heroine of this world. Anyone who opposes her will automatically lose their wits and bring ruin upon themselves. In my past life, my family was torn apart and brutally murdered, yet the saintly heroine merely stroked my child's hair, patted, and shook her head. You reap what you sow. I merely sought the position of concubine. Why must she be so intolerant? This time around, I've given up entirely. Let my husband dote on the heroine if he wishes, let the children seek her affection if they choose. But later, my husband and children wept, begging me to pay them more attention. The heroine discovered to her disbelief that she had become the subject of gossip throughout the entire capital. Yin Yang, I intend to take Gigi as my concubine. Don't be so jealous. What woman wouldn't allow her husband to take a concubine? My husband roared, and the deafening sound gave me a headache the moment I opened my eyes. Surveying my surroundings, I could scarcely believe what I saw. I had truly been reborn, just as the storybooks described. Seeing me staring blankly at him, his tone grew harsher. Gigi merely seeks the position of a concubine. Why can't you tolerate her? I drew a deep breath and replied calmly, fine. If you wish to take a concubine, then do so. You jealous woman. What did you just say? His face froze in shock, as if he couldn't believe his ears. I said if you want to take a concubine, I consent. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving my husband standing there, utterly bewildered. In my past life, it was also at this moment he proposed taking Lu Gigi as a concubine. Back then, I had vehemently opposed it. Yet, I couldn't control my thoughts and constantly targeted Lu Gigi. The result? My husband and our 2 children all turned against me. In the end, my parents and I met a tragic demise. Only after death did I realize I'd been trapped in a romance novel, and that concubine was actually this world's true saintly heroine. What's more unbearable is that anyone who opposes her automatically loses their wits and gets crushed by her. This lifetime, I just want to live peacefully with those I care about. I refuse to get entangled in their mess anymore. The very next day, my husband eagerly brought Lu Gigi into the household. Upon learning this, my parents and younger brother rushed to the Bai residence. At that moment, I was handling affairs in the study. Hearing the maid's report, I hurried to the front hall. When I stepped into the front hall and saw my parents and brother, still whole in this life, tears blurred my vision. To see them alive again, this feeling was simply too wonderful. Seeing my tears, my younger brother asked with heartache, "Sister, did he mistreat you?" With that, he furiously swung his fist at my husband, shouting, "Bai Qingyun, you ungrateful beast. You married my sister when you were just a lowly soldier, swearing to us that you'd be one man for one lifetime. It was only with my family's support that you became a great general. Who would have thought you'd change your heart now? Bai Lang, are you all right?" Lu Gigi rushed over to help her husband up. My husband frowned and said, "Father-in-law, mother-in-law, little brother, Gigi and I truly love each other. Moreover, Yin Yang has agreed to my taking Gigi as a concubine. I hope you will grant your blessing." "That's right, grandfather, grandmother. Please let father and Aunt Lu be together." My son chimed in from the side. "Mother, say something. Didn't you agree yesterday? Are you going back on your word?" My daughter pleaded anxiously beside him. Seeing their mutual affection, I couldn't help but recall the myth of the cowherd and weaver girl. Yet now, I felt like the heartless Queen Mother of Heaven, destined to tear them apart. "Yuing, Yu Chu, how dare you side with outsiders?" my mother asked in disbelief. Before the children could answer, I addressed my parents and younger brother, "Father, mother. I did indeed consent to Bai Qingyun taking a concubine. But..." My mother tried to say more, but I cut her off. "Father, mother, little brother, I haven't seen you in so long. Today we've finally reunited, we should cherish this moment. Come, let's all gather in my courtyard shortly. We should spend quality time together as a family." With that, I grabbed my mother's hand and pulled her into my quarters without a second thought. Seeing this, father and my younger brother gave my husband a few hard punches before following us inside. Once inside my courtyard, I dismissed everyone else and recounted my past life, framing it as a dream. My mother embraced me, weeping bitterly. My poor daughter. I always said by Qing Yun and those two ungrateful brats were nothing but ingrates. I'll chop those ingrateful dogs to pieces and feed them to the dogs. Father and my younger brother roared in fury. Only after my soothing words and persuasion did they abandon that thought. After a deep conversation with them, I reluctantly bid them farewell. Upon arriving at the Bai residence, Lu Zhizhi quickly won over the hearts of everyone. Mother, why haven't you dined with us in the main hall these past days? My eldest son questioned me. Oh. So you finally remembered your own mother? I retorted sarcastically. His face flushed crimson as he declared, Mother, you truly are as jealous and intolerant as father said. You can't stand Concubine Lu, not a shred of her generosity or kindness in you. Yes, I am neither as magnanimous nor as kind as she. Then go to her. After all, your family of 4 is happier without me. I replied indifferently. You're unreasonable. With that, my eldest son hurriedly left my courtyard. Watching his retreating figure, I couldn't help but recall the words he and my daughter had spoken to me in my previous life. In my past life, I had always pushed him to study martial arts and academics diligently, yet he accused me of forcing him for my own pride. I demanded my daughter conduct herself with propriety, but she claimed I was stifling her freedom. They said I was vicious and jealous, lacking any of Concubine Lu's kindness. They even wished Concubine Lu were their real mother. Even dogs don't reject their mothers for being ugly. Only after living this life anew did I realize they're worse than dogs, ungrateful beasts. Young mistress, the young master and young mistress are truly heartbreaking. You raise them with such devotion, yet that little slut Lu Zhizhi has only been in the household a short while and has already won them over. I'll find someone to teach that slut a lesson for you, Zhang Nanny whispered in my ear. I looked at Aunt Zhang, a wave of bitterness washing over me. Childless herself, she had served me faithfully in my previous life. Yet because my intellect had been forcibly diminished, she could only obey my commands. In the end, after my death, they found some excuse to punish her, 50 lashes before banishing her from the estate. She met a tragic end on the streets. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but grasp her hand. Nanny, such trifles aren't worth your sorrow. They're merely following in their ungrateful father's footsteps. Zhang Nanny nodded. I sighed, what good does it do to treat them well? They act as if I were their enemy. I won't concern myself with them anymore. I'll just focus on managing my own affairs. But Zhang Nanny started to say more, yet fell silent upon seeing the resolve in my eyes. She knew that once I made up my mind about something, it was final. Within days, my husband cited my incompetence as a housekeeper and demanded Lu Zhizhi take over. Hearing this news, I felt no surprise. I knew his discontent had simmered long before, merely lacking a suitable excuse. Fortunately, after reincarnating, I had my dowry meticulously organized. In my past life, they relied entirely on me for their food, clothing, and daily necessities, yet in the end, they blamed me. This time around, without my dowry, I'll see how they maintain the minister's household's dignity. So, I agreed without hesitation and handed over all the account books and keys to Lu Zhizhi. One day, as I was strolling through the back garden, I suddenly heard murmurs drifting from afar. One maid remarked, "Ah, Lady Lu is so much better. When the mistress managed the household, she was always harsh with us. Any mistake meant punishment. Now that Lady Lu's here, life's so much easier for us." Another maid chimed in, "Yes, yes. Lady Lu is so kind. Not only does she never punish us, she often gives us gifts." Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. These maids were so naive. Lu Zhizhi was merely putting on a show. The gifts she gave them now would be repaid tenfold later. Just then, the maid beside me was about to speak up in rebuke. I raised my hand to silence her, then turned and walked away. "Mother, what's wrong with you? The princess's flower viewing banquet is in just a few days. Why haven't you prepared new clothes and jewelry for me? Have you abandoned us?" My daughter stormed into my room, her face flushed with anger. "Exactly, Yin Young. Today I went to our family restaurant to treat a friend to a meal, but manager Qian actually asked me to settle the bill. It was so embarrassing. Just then, my husband stormed in and shouted at me. Humph, you two are quite the guests. Go ask concubine Lu, isn't she managing the household now? I retorted coldly. Yin Yang, you've changed. You weren't like this before, my husband said softly. What was I like before? I treated you both with endless kindness, yet it couldn't compare to a stranger you've known for mere months, I snapped. And besides, didn't every item of clothing and every meal you've ever had come from my dowry? Husband, do you want everyone to know you're a good-for-nothing living off your wife's dowry? I said coldly, my eyes filled with contempt. A flicker of shame and anger crossed his face, but he dared not argue. By now, the maids in my room were all staring at him with strange looks. He drew a deep breath and declared, Fine. Very well. You'll manage your courtyard from now on. Don't expect a single coin from the general's residence. With that, he stormed out in hurried steps. Witnessing this, my daughter stamped her foot and spat, I don't have a cruel mother like you. Then she turned and chased after her husband. Watching their retreating figures, a sharp pang of pain pierced my heart. Though I'd long known their true natures, it still brought me sorrow and grief. Soon, the day of the flower appreciation banquet arrived. That dawn, before daybreak, I awoke and began meticulously preparing myself. Once I was fully dressed and stepped out of the Bai residence, I saw my husband and several others chatting and laughing cheerfully at the gate. And my ungrateful daughter was arm in arm with Lady Lu, the two looking remarkably close. Spotting me, my daughter gave me a cold snort before sweetly telling my husband, Father, rest assured. I'll take good care of Lady Lu and won't let anyone bully her. With that, she pulled Lady Lu straight toward the carriage. At the flower viewing banquet, everyone was laughing and chatting merrily, enjoying themselves immensely. Just then, the princess suddenly suggested taking us to admire the peonies she had painstakingly cultivated for years. So our group followed the princess toward that sea of flowers. However, as we neared our destination, we heard the sound of an argument. Stop! How dare you pick this Yao Huang peony? This is the princess's favorite peony. A furious voice shouted. We truly didn't know this was the princess's favorite. Came a familiar, aggrieved voice. Yes. There are so many flowers here, we only picked one. Besides, the princess is so kind and generous, she surely wouldn't mind. Another voice quickly chimed in. Hearing this, I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. The princess consort was no magnanimous soul. In my past life, these two had already caused a major disaster this very way. I recalled how my husband, disregarding propriety, had insisted I bring consort Lu along to the flower viewing banquet. Back then, they too had brazenly plucked the princess consort's favorite peonies, just as they were doing today, enraging her completely. My love for my daughter ran deep. Seeing her besieged by the crowd, I rushed forward to rescue her. Yet, to my utter shock, my daughter and Lady Lu shifted all blame onto me. They claimed I had ordered the picking because I coveted that particular Yao Huang peony. Facing my daughter's tear-filled gaze, I gritted my teeth and took the blame for her sake. Consequently, I earned the princess's bitter resentment. But this lifetime, I have no desire to meddle in such trivial matters again. At that moment, the eldest princess's authoritative voice rang out, by your own logic, if I were to hold you accountable, would that not make me appear unkind and lacking in magnanimity? But if I were to insist on pursuing this matter, how would you respond? Hearing this, my daughter and Lady Lu immediately knelt on the ground, trembling with fear as they begged for mercy. The princess frowned, scrutinizing the two of them. Who are you? From which family? My daughter answered shakily, We are. Mother, save me! Her gaze suddenly fell upon me standing behind the princess, and she clung to me desperately as if I were her lifeline. I drew a deep breath and forced myself to answer calmly, Your Highness, they are both from the Bai household. One is my daughter, and the other is my husband's concubine. At these words, the princess's expression darkened instantly. She spoke coldly, Lady Bai, all the guests at my banquet today are of noble standing. Yet you dare bring such a lowly concubine from your household? Is this not a sign of disrespect toward this palace? I hastily knelt, feigning helplessness as I explained, Your Highness, I would never dare. It's just. My voice caught in my throat as I spoke. At that moment, Lady Gu, who was very close to me, spoke up, Your Highness may not know this, but Lord Bai favors his wife over his concubines. He has long since stripped Lady Bai of her household management duties, handing them instead to his beloved concubine. Had your invitation not explicitly required the attendance of all official wives and daughters, Lady Bai might not even have been able to attend today's banquet. With that, she let out a soft sigh. Hearing this, my tears poured forth like rain, and I wept silently. In my past life, I loved my husband so deeply that I never spoke of anything outside the home. This lifetime, I care not for the saying that family shame should not be aired publicly. After all, I am not the one who did wrong. How dare he? This Bai Qingyun is utterly insolent, daring to disregard this princess. The eldest princess was furious beyond words, turning her gaze to my daughter and Lady Lu. You two dared to pluck my Yao Huang peonies. How utterly audacious. Guards! Drag these two away and administer 30 lashes. Commanded the princess. Your Highness, please spare my daughter. I pleaded. What? You dare intercede for her, The princess asked. How could I intercede for her? But with so many witnesses present, I had to put on a show, didn't I? Your servant dares not. Yet the pain inflicted upon the child pierces the mother's heart. This is all due to my failure to supervise her properly. I beg the princess to allow me to take my daughter's 30 lashes instead. I said through tears. Your Highness, please see clearly. Lady Bai's daughter disregards her own mother and grows close to her concubine. Now she seeks to evade responsibility by having her own mother bear the punishment. Such conduct is utterly unfilial. As she spoke, the woman turned to look at my daughter. At that moment, my daughter gazed hopefully at the princess, her eyes fixed on her before she could look away. The princess saw it clearly. Enough! Take them away! The princess commanded angrily. Princess, please reconsider. It was all because my mother adores the Yao Huang peonies. She ordered us to do this. My daughter hurriedly explained, then turned to look at me. That's right. Princess. You're the one who sees things most clearly. Please don't let the innocent suffer. Lu Zhizhi chimed in from the side. You heartless, ungrateful creatures. How could your mother possibly have ordered you to do these things? You know perfectly well she breaks out in hives all over her body just from touching peonies. As her own children, you know her less than I, an outsider. And now you dare to slander your own mother. Lady Gu declared angrily. Hearing this, I clutched my chest, staring at my daughter in utter disbelief. I immediately knelt and kowtowed, pleading, Your Highness, this matter has nothing to do with the general's household. Please show mercy and spare the others. The princess snorted coldly and declared, Very well. Since you show some sense, I shall spare the rest of the household this time. But these two must be punished severely. With that, she waved her hand. At her command, the two women were dragged away by her attendants to receive their punishment. Watching them lie barely alive on the ground, I ordered them to be taken away and hurriedly left the princess's residence. Back at the Bai residence, I had them carried into a room. Just then, my husband, having heard the news, rushed over, his face flushed with anger as he confronted me. Su Yun, why didn't you protect Zhizhi and our daughter? Now they're both injured. What kind of mistress of the house are you? If you can't handle being the general's wife, then step down. Hearing this, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Heh. If I hadn't handled things properly today, our entire general's residence would have been dragged into this mess. I fixed him with a steely stare. You only know how to blame me, yet you don't dare confront the princess consort. It's utterly ridiculous. My husband's expression darkened further at my words. Pointing a finger at me, his voice laced with fury, he snapped, You dare talk back to me. I responded with a cold laugh, utterly unafraid. Why shouldn't I? You owe your position entirely to my parents' support. Without my family's influence, could you have become a general? What right do you have to shout at me? Seeing the shock on his face brought me a flicker of satisfaction. Did he think I was still the person who used to obey her every whim? Only after facing life and death does one truly understand the preciousness of life. Then, my tone firm, I added, and you'd best remember to prepare a generous gift for the princess, to apologize to her. Otherwise, our general's residence might face a great calamity. Having said this, I paid him no further attention and turned to leave the room. That day, I had just awakened from sleep when a clamor of noise erupted outside. Frowning, I asked impatiently, "What's all this commotion outside?" "Go see what's happening." The maid beside me immediately replied, "Madam, it's Chunmei, the maid from Lady Lu's quarters, seeking you." I waved my hand, my tone flat. "Let her in." Chunmei rushed in, her face etched with panic. Kneeling on the floor, she bowed her head repeatedly, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Madam, I beg you to save me. I'll do anything for you, even if it means becoming your beast of burden." Chunmei's desperate plea stemmed from my husband's recent act of appeasement toward the princess's household. In his efforts to make amends, he had practically emptied the general's residence, whose foundations were never particularly deep. This left Lady Lu struggling to manage the household. She not only reduced the servants' monthly stipends but even seized the bonus silver rightfully owed to the servants in Chunmei's quarters. Under the pretext that these servants were already provided for by the household's resources, their monthly wages were deemed sufficient. The bonus silver, it was claimed, should instead be donated to the beggar children outside the city to fill their empty stomachs. Deprived of most of her bonus silver, Chunmei could no longer afford her father's medical expenses, and his condition steadily worsened. With no other options left, she had come seeking help. I signaled to Mother Zhang to give Chunmei some silver and told her to hurry back to handle her affairs. Not long after, Lu Ma from Lu Zhiji's courtyard led the charge in bringing this matter to my husband's attention. "Su Yun, how could you do this? As the mistress of the general's household, how can you let them cause such a commotion?" My husband glared at me, his face flushed with anger. "Commotion? I didn't cause this situation. Besides, didn't you give the stewardship to Concubine Lu? Why are you coming to me?" I retorted coldly. My husband's face turned crimson with fury, and he was momentarily speechless. Just then, Lu Zhiji approached, her eyes brimming with tears. "Madam, how could you be so heartless? Your dowry was so lavish. Now that the household is short on funds, couldn't you spare a little money?" After speaking, she turned to the servants and urged, "You all should beg the madam." Hearing this, the servants immediately began kowtowing to me. "Madam, please, we beg you." "Madam, seeing them like this, don't you feel pity? Can't you be a little kinder?" Lu Zhiji persisted. I looked at them and sneered coldly, "You're always so good at playing the saint. If you're so capable, why don't you take responsibility for your own actions?" Bai Lang, I never imagined Madam would be so intolerant of me. Lu Zhiji began, then suddenly collapsed to the ground. My husband rushed to pick up Lu Zhiji, frantically shouting, "Quick, fetch the doctor." He then shot me a vicious glare before turning and leaving. "Su Yun, you venomous woman. How dare you push Zhiji like this? If anything happens to her, I'll never forgive you." My husband bellowed at me as he carried Lu Zhiji away. It turned out Lu Zhiji was pregnant, and my husband blamed the servants for disturbing her. In the end, those servants not only failed to receive their reward but were beaten instead. What surprised me even more was that after Lu Zhiji became pregnant, my husband set his sights on me. He actually wanted me to give up my own dowry to nourish Lu Zhiji's body. Worse still, fearing complications during her delivery, he demanded I give her the remaining 1,000-year-old ginseng root. When I refused, he accused me of being cruel and intolerant toward Lu Zhiji. I recalled my own labor when I gave birth to our daughter, enduring a full day and night of agony. My husband back then showed none of the concern he feigns today. Instead, as my labor approached, he left without hesitation for the frontier, all for the sake of promotion and wealth. Now, before Lu Zhiji has even given birth, he cares for her so deeply. It truly breaks my heart. Yet, Lu Zhiji never lived to see her child's birth. Because of the silver reward incident, Lu Mama in her courtyard lost that money. Consequently, Lu Ma's son caught a severe cold. Without money for treatment, he ultimately passed away. So Lu Ma blamed Lu Xixi for this tragedy. She secretly laced Lu Xixi's food with abortion-inducing herbs, causing her to miscarry. Yet Lu Xixi stubbornly insisted I was responsible, claiming I couldn't tolerate her as a secondary wife and had ordered Lu Ma to do this. She even threatened a hunger strike, refusing all food and water, and barred my husband and the other 2 men from approaching her. She told my husband, "I lost my child. If you don't punish the mistress, I will never forgive you." Hearing this, my husband was heartbroken, as if his entire world had collapsed. Yet, instead of confronting Lu Xixi, he placed all the blame on me and demanded a divorce. In the end, my husband and I divorced. Frankly, I couldn't wait to leave them. Whether I opposed Lu Xixi or tried to befriend her, I'd only be made to look foolish. As I packed my belongings to depart, my husband, son, and daughter were gathered around Lu Xixi, vying to curry favor with her. Seeing this scene, I felt relieved that I no longer cared about such things. Otherwise, I would have been driven to my death by sheer frustration. Winter arrived in the blink of an eye. How can it be this cold already in December? How will we endure the coming months? Granny Zhang shivered as she entered the room, rubbing her hands together as she spoke to me. I sat by the window, gazing quietly outside, a trace of worry in my eyes. In my past life, that blizzard raged for nearly 3 months, freezing countless commoners to death. Fortunately, this time I had made thorough preparations in advance. During this period, the Imperial Palace was hosting a grand ice festival, inviting numerous guests to attend. Deep down, I knew full well that the so-called ice festival was merely a pretext. Its true purpose was to compel these high-ranking officials and nobles to donate funds for the snow disaster relief. In my previous life, when I saw Lu Xixi step forward, declaring the general's mansion would donate 100,000 taels of silver, my heart burned with rage. She completely overlooked one crucial fact: the general's mansion was already bankrupt. That entire sum of 100,000 taels had been taken from my dowry. I simply couldn't tolerate such a thing happening. As if possessed, I leaped up on the spot to voice my opposition. Yet this act plunged me into peril. Not only did I face punishment and disdain from the emperor and others, but worse still, Lu Xixi later accused me of being heartless and unwilling to aid the victims. She even claimed that with such a lavish dowry, I ought to donate more silver to the disaster relief. Somehow, word of this incident spread, drawing the deep resentment of countless victims toward me. Ultimately, upon returning to my maternal home, I encountered a terrifying refugee uprising. These refugees vented all their resentment upon me. They stormed into my family home and brutally murdered me and my relatives. Afterward, Lu Xixi merely stroked my child's hair, pursed her lips, and shook her head. One reaps what one sows. I merely sought the position of a secondary wife. Why did she have to be so intolerant? Whenever I recall this experience, my heart grows heavy beyond measure. Time passed swiftly, and before I knew it, the day arrived. I dressed meticulously and arrived at the venue. As I scanned the crowd, I suddenly spotted Lu Xixi walking toward me, hand in hand with her daughter. The moment my daughter saw me, she scampered over, beaming with pride as she declared, "Mother, ever since you left the general's residence, our family has been happier and more harmonious." Hearing this, the corners of my mouth lifted slightly, though my eyes flashed with a barely perceptible sneer. I noticed my daughter was wearing last year's clothes and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Sure enough, one shouldn't be too self-deprecating. Whenever Zuiyan Pavilion released a new outfit or accessory, I would always buy one for my daughter without hesitation. Yet she never appreciated it, even expressing disgust that the items weren't pretty enough. Now, without me fussing over such things, she still wore last year's styles without a hint of discontent. Just then, Lu Xixi stepped before me, a smug smile gracing her face. "Well, if it isn't the lady. My memory fails me, I'd forgotten you divorced General Bai. Now I'm the general's lady." As she spoke, she fixed me with a challenging stare. I chuckled coldly inside. This saintly heroine wasn't so pure and virtuous after all. Oh, I see. But don't get too carried away. Leaving the general's residence was for the best. At least I won't be drained dry by you lot like a vampire in the future. With that, I patted my chest in relief. Lu Xixi was momentarily speechless, stumped by my retort. After sizing me up, she suddenly spoke. Sister, how can you bear to wear such lavish attire to this event? With so many refugees in the capital's outskirts going hungry and cold, why not use your generous dowry to provide them with clothing and food? Facing Lu Shixi's accusation, I countered without flinching, have I not provided aid? These past days, I've sent people daily to distribute soup and alms in the suburbs. You keep urging me to help the refugees, why don't you contribute money yourself? Hearing my words, Lu Xixi sighed with feigned regret. Sister, you know perfectly well our household situation. You own so many shops and earn substantial profits every year. Yet you've done so little. In my opinion, you should contribute far more. I raised an eyebrow and asked, oh? And how much do you suggest I should give? Lu Xixi answered without hesitation, at least 100,000 taels of silver. No, 200,000 taels would be more appropriate. When she uttered that figure, everyone present gasped in unison, their faces frozen in astonishment. Clearly, Lu Xixi's shocking statement had stunned them all. I chuckled softly, easy for you to say. If you're so capable, why don't you contribute the money yourself? The crowd immediately began murmuring among themselves. Lu Xixi's face flushed crimson, and she quickly changed the subject with a startled exclamation. Sister, today is His Majesty's Ice Festival. You are no longer the general's wife, how dare you attend? Seeing me speechless, she added maliciously, you didn't sneak in with your mother, did you? Oh, that's treason. Sister, come with me to apologize to Her Majesty the Empress. Confess what crime? The Empress suddenly interjected. Your Majesty, sister attended without receiving an invitation. Lu Xixi explained. Humph. If she lacks the right, does that mean you have it? I hear you're merely a concubine elevated to wife? The Empress sneered. Then, turning kindly to me, she added, your earlier actions did resolve the urgent matter between His Majesty and this palace, did they not? Amidst the crowd's bewilderment, she signaled the palace attendants behind her to announce the imperial decree. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees, I have heard that recent snow disasters have ravaged the land, plunging the people into hardship. In this time of great need, Su Yun, daughter of the Su family, has generously opened her coffers, donating both money and goods to alleviate the people's distress. Her noble deed is deeply moving. This righteous act embodies a compassionate heart and sets an example for my subjects. To honor her virtue, Su Yun is hereby conferred the title of County Princess, with the honorific Rinda. May she continue to uphold kindness and work for the welfare of the people. So decreed. Fortunately, when the snow disaster struck this lifetime, I decisively donated funds and supplies. Not only that, I proactively pledged allegiance to the emperor and donated a full 200,000 taels of silver. This allowed me to avoid repeating the fate of my past life. After this event, I learned from my mother that Lu Xixi had indeed gained widespread notoriety, though it was infamy. Later, I even heard she had persuaded the daughter of the Qinghe princess, the Anfu County princess, to take a concubine for her own husband. It must be noted that the princess had long harbored resentment toward Lu Xixi, and this incident infuriated her beyond measure. Consequently, everyone began to distance themselves from Lu Xixi. Meanwhile, in an attempt to demonstrate her magnanimity and generosity, Lu Xixi recklessly spent the last of the general's household silver to aid the disaster victims. This drastically reduced the quality of life for the household's masters, even leaving them unable to pay the servants' monthly wages. And my ungrateful children actually came begging before me, feigning poverty to extract money from me. In their words, a hint of resentment toward Lu Xixi had emerged, though they themselves remained oblivious. But my heart had long been shattered by these two ungrateful creatures. How could I possibly help them again? So, I simply dismissed them with a flimsy excuse. These past days, heavy snow has fallen relentlessly, growing ever more intense. Despite early preparations this lifetime, countless refugees still pour into the city. With less than 2 or 3 days remaining until the dreaded refugee uprising of my past life, my anxiety and unease only deepen. Just then, Chun Mei from the general's residence suddenly rushed to my house, warning me to be wary of the general's estate. It turned out Lu Xixi had sent word to the refugees, claiming the Su residence was well stocked and lived in luxury. This was clearly an attempt to lure the refugees to the Su residence. Hearing this news, my heart tightened. It was impossible to guard against everything. I immediately grasped the gravity of the situation, promptly ordering servants to reward Chunmei generously while also instructing the residents to strengthen security measures. Sure enough, the dreaded refugee uprising from my past life finally erupted. That night, the entire capital descended into chaos. The Sioux residents suffered a massive assault, nearly breached by the refugees. Fortunately, we had reinforced our defenses earlier. Otherwise, our family might have repeated the tragedy of my past life. The general's residence, however, was not so fortunate. All this was thanks to Liu Zhizhi. She had brought a pitiful, disaster-stricken boy into the general's residence. This boy colluded with outsiders and, under cover of night, secretly opened a side gate of the general's residence. Were it not for my husband and the others possessing extraordinary skills and formidable martial prowess, our entire family would likely have become the refugees' meal. Yet my husband lost a leg, and my 2 children were not only disfigured but also terrified into losing their voices. Liu Zhizhi suffered another miscarriage, leaving her barren. Unexpectedly, Liu Zhizhi did not stop there. She continued to adopt a pitifully helpless demeanor, persistently carrying out her so-called acts of kindness. As time passed, Liu Zhizhi's behavior aroused widespread resentment. Thus, Liu Zhizhi gradually became a laughingstock among the people of the capital. People universally condemned her as utterly foolish, with some even suggesting she be divorced. Now, Liu Zhizhi had become nothing more than a joke for people to discuss over meals. Even her husband and beloved children had gradually grown to despise her. Miss, General Bai has arrived at the gate with the young master and young mistress, Nanny Zhang informed me cautiously. Ignore them. Keep them outside the gate. I replied without hesitation, my voice cold and resolute. In my past life, no matter how obediently I served them, they always treated me like dirt, branding me a vicious, selfish woman, utterly inferior to Liu Zhizhi's magnanimity and kindness. In this life, I chose to let go, no longer craving their approval. Yet now they've come crying and begging, pleading for me to tend to them, even demanding I return to the general's residence. Humans, truly, are the most pathetic creatures. The end.